Recording started? Cool. All right, everyone, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a really exciting panel to speak with you all today about networking and some of their experiences. We have Caitlin Jarvis, Jeffrey Homola, and Maha Ohak. So I'm going to pass it over to them to do some introductions, and I will start with Maha.
Hi everyone, I'm Maha. My job title is I'm a support scientist with Gene Lab, and I've been in this role for 4 months now, and I was an intern previously for 7 months.
Caitlin?
Hello, everybody. I'm Katie. I am a computer engineer by title, but I'm trained as a mathematician in the Intelligent Systems Division here at Ames. And I've been in this role for about 2 years, but I was also an intern, specifically a Pathways intern, for about a year in a similar role before that.
Jeffrey?
Hey everyone, I'm Jeff Homola, a researcher here at NASA Ames in California. I'm an aerospace technologist in human machine systems. I work in the Human Systems Integration Division and been in this role for quite a long time. Started as an intern, then a contractor, and then a civil servant. So all told, probably 17 years, somewhere in there. And then was in the Navy before that as well. So kind of service to service.
Thank you so much for these introductions. I'm going to go through a couple of questions, and whoever wants to go first can, if you have something that you want to share and something top of mind, go for it. Or, you can just decide if you want to answer or not. So the first question that I'm going to ask is, how did your educational journey impact how you got to your role?
I can jump in first and then share with others. As I was thinking about sort of my academic experience and what brought me to NASA, I think there were sort of two things that stuck out that got me on a good trajectory. The first was that when I started out in college, I came in as an undeclared major and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I think that really, looking back, that really allowed me the openness to try a bunch of different things, to take different classes. I went everything from archaeology to physics to linguistics, and to really kind of test things out and see where my passions really were. And I think that really helped me to kind of fall into the right space, which for me was math. And then I think kind of the second piece of that was when I found math, it was this sort of broadly applicable subject that is applicable to so many different fields. And so I think that specifically really kind of helped me to land my role at NASA, because I'm able to take these skills that I've cultivated in this broad subject of mathematics and apply them to all sorts of different projects. And my skills are really applicable to a variety of different disciplines and allow me to kind of bounce between projects and apply to different things, which has been a really fun part of my career.
I can jump in next.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I go after. Maybe we'll do that this in order each time. Like Caitlin, Maha, and then I'll clean it up.
All right. For my experience, well, during university, I was a pre-medical student, and towards the end of my studies, I was getting really stressed out with all the pre-med requirements, and I think I was molding myself into someone who the student I didn't know I wanted to be. So at that point, I was like, what are my priorities? What do I want to do? And I applied to NASA internships. And, it was relevant. So my university studies was in human biology and society. But at that point, I didn't know that NASA did biology whatsoever. So it was kind of a shot in the dark. And I found out that they had a program. And then my educational studies, I think, came more into hand if I'm coming from a more non-traditional major. So my major was physical and social sciences combined. And for my current role as a support scientist with Gene Lab, during my interview, they were interested in what my ideas were about applying the social science ethics I learned in my courses to my role. So I think that there's always spaces for whatever unique opportunity or whatever unique courses that you think is not relevant really to what you want to do, whether it be engineering or mathematics, that there definitely is a way to apply it and people are interested in how you want to apply that.
All right, guess I'll go next. Probably not on the smartest side of the spectrum like Caitlin and Maha are, given their backgrounds. Like I mentioned earlier, I was in the Navy originally, just straight out of high school. Did that for about eight, almost 9 years. And as I was deciding to get out, I realized I should go to college. And so when I was on my shore duty, started going to community college down in Monterey, actually, and just wanted to start doing the basics there. And that was where I started to try and figure out kind of what it is that I wanted to do. NASA wasn't really in the sphere of thought at that point, but just wanted to get the main kind of lower division stuff out, and then got interested in cognitive science, actually, kind of like how we perceive, think, memory, decision making, those types of things. And so got into a program for undergrad in cognitive science, which led to my graduate degree, which is in human factors. So kind of how do humans fit into complex systems and user interfaces and those types of things. And didn't realize NASA was actually doing that type of thing. But then that's where I found the internship through my graduate school and NASA Ames, and doing that, specifically that type of work. So that really led into my position now, which is, well, I'm kind of more project management now, but in the beginning, it was kind of looking at humans, specifically in air traffic control and air traffic management type of research, and that led into kind of some of the more new entrant type of things going on now with like drones and electric taxis and those types of things. So an interesting continuum in there, and never had planned it in the beginning, to be honest, but but here we are.
Thank you all for explaining that. It's so interesting to see how, different journeys can lead to NASA. I know I never imagined when I was doing my psychology undergrad that I would end up here. So there's definitely so many different ways to get here, and it's nice to see what that spectrum can look like. The next question that we are going to get into is, what role did networking play in how you landed your specific position within your org or entry into NASA in general?
I'll jump in and we'll stick with our order so we're not talking over each other. I absolutely agree that I never imagined that I would be at NASA someday, and it's such a fun and amazing place to work. And I think networking played a big role in that. One of the things I've tried to do throughout my academic and journey and my time at NASA, which I think has served me well, is I never pass up an opportunity to meet somebody new and to talk to somebody. And I think it leads you to so many connections that you never would have expected, that lead you to great things like a NASA internship. So when I started at NASA, I had a family friend who had invited me to a space science workshop, and it was kind of beyond my scope, but I thought, this sounds cool. I think I'll check it out. And I had a wonderful time. I took every opportunity to meet new people and to kind of explain where I was in my career. And that led me to a connection of a woman who had done a Pathways internship before. And so she was able to share with me her experience and kind of help me get set up with an application and kind of go through that process with me. And I then, a few months later was offered a Pathways internship, which sort of changed the trajectory of my career for the better, because it led me here to the position that I have now. Within NASA, I still do that every time I meet somebody new in the hallway or, start a new project and I'm able to talk to people. I always try to take advantage of that, because you never know when somebody's going to think, oh, I need a mathematician for this project I'm working on. I met Katie or something like that. It's those kind of connections and that you can make that really can further your career.
I mean, going off on that point, I completely agree with Caitlin. I was going to say something very similar, but also within NASA, I would say it's very easy to want to talk to everybody because absolutely everyone around you is doing the coolest things. So you're going to be motivated by that as well. And then you're going to be caught up in a conversation and they're going to introduce you to someone else who's doing relevant work. So for my position, my internship, my desk was actually within the cubicles of Gene Lab. So it was me and then all the Gene Lab support scientists. So just chatting with them in the morning, having lunch with them, that type of networking, that type of social work. Eventually, when they knew my internship was ending, they were like, "We have a position open. Would you be interested in applying?" And I'm told that I also have this habit of every time I'm in lab, if someone's doing something in lab, I'll like peek over their shoulder real quick, asking like, "What is that?" Or like, "What mission is this?" So I think I'm motivated mostly because you just want to know what everyone is doing, and you're gonna be completely enraptured by what their science is. So yeah, I ask questions. No one's going to be like, "This is top secret. You cannot know anything about this." Everyone's very welcoming, and yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll pick up on that as well. I think, like Caitlin and Maha already mentioned, networking's pretty huge. And it's not, when I first thought of networking, I was thinking of, when you're at a conference or a trade show, you're out there handing out your business card, but it's not, it's way, networking is way more than that. And it's a key part to not only getting into, an initial position, but your networking kind of continues off from that to get into kind of new positions and getting onto new projects. And when you're more probably on the junior side, your networking is a little bit more limited to who you're talking to. But as you kind of move up, your scope and kind of access to people really expands quite a bit to your lab, to your center, to domestically, and then internationally. Pretty soon, you're going to be networking with people out there. And yeah, I think the big thing in there is being genuine. Not being kind of creepy and just try to get into people's business, but really just being interested and curious about what people are doing, and also not caring about so much like going for the top executive type person, but even the janitor, taking a interest in kind of what they're doing. You never know who knows somebody, so it's I think important to really just look at everyone in your community and what you're doing, and treat them as an opportunity not only to get to know them, but also to kind of expand your network and opportunities.
Yeah, I think you guys all make really good points, and I think it's really understated how important it is to, treat everybody equally and do your job at the same level on every project that you have, because you never know when those connections are going to come back or reconnect with you in the future or provide new opportunities for things. So I definitely agree with that line of thinking. And so my next question is, what lessons did you learn through networking?
So for me, I think one of my biggest lessons when I think about all the networking I've done and kind of where it's led me in my career is people always say, I'm sure many of you have heard the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I only agree with that 50% because I do think who you know is important, right? Building that network can often get you in the door when there are thousands of applicants. Knowing someone, having the right connection can kind of bring you to the top of the page or the top of the pile, so someone will look at your application. But once you kind of get in the door, then being able to show that you're a great researcher or a great employee, that you have skills and you can communicate and you're a hard worker and that you have good research to back up whatever you're applying for, that's also really important. So I think networking is a huge piece of this and can really further your career, but also being very good at what you do is important as well. I think that's one of the lessons I've learned.
And I feel like the lesson I learned was, hearing the word before in high school and college, like the word kind of scared me, networking. It seemed like a very like professional type of like action, but it's not that scary. It's kind of fun because if if you're being very genuine to yourself and you're doing you're working as hard as you can and you're enjoying the science that's around you, you're going to end up talking to people, as I was saying before. And soon you'll be networking. You wouldn't even know you're networking half the time. I completely agree with Caitlin, but about the what you know as well, because even learning about different projects and different sectors from other people, that means when I'm eventually going to conferences, for example, then when those projects are being presented, then I will be like, oh, then do you know so and so? Because I met so and so who is working in said regolith project or said microbiology project. So yeah, not that scary.
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit of both of what Caitlin and Maha said. And I'm kind of more introverted in some ways. At least I used to be a little bit more. And so the idea of networking was kind of scary, like initially, and not really super, in the comfort zone to do something in what you normally traditionally think of what networking is. But like was mentioned already, part of what you're just doing in your job, if you're doing a good job, doing it well, your actions will speak for itself. And so just doing your job in the best way possible is kind of networking in some sense, getting publications out there if that's part of what your role is also networking out there. Internationally, it's all available online now, so getting your work and your word out there. And like I was saying before, and I think this is kind of what Maha was saying too, like you don't have to limit yourself to just only networking in your narrow band of expertise, but talking to people that have what you think has nothing to do with what you're doing, and then you realize like, oh, there's actually some pretty similar overlaps, even though they're not directly in line with each other. But especially now with automation and autonomy and all, these types of topics that are coming up, like artificial intelligence, those types of things, they're really broadly applicable. And so you can learn a lot of new things by just talking to people that really aren't in your area, but that you'll find some really interesting kind of connections and overlaps and synergies that come out of that as well.
You bring up an interesting, this thread through everything brings up an interesting point that I think a lot of people struggle with, including myself, but being a new employee since September, really. How do you network in a virtual environment? How do you make those connections with people, even within your own office when we are in such a hybrid and widespread environment where half of your team is across the US?
I think that's hard. I think, just as you said, Sarah Beth, it's something I'm still learning how to do all these years later. But I think one of the things that I do is I have found during COVID and sort of these virtual times that we've lived in, that people are really willing to jump on a 30-minute call with you. Maybe before COVID, that would have been funny to ask for that, but now it's pretty normal. And so I'll email somebody and say, hey, I heard you talk about this at a seminar, and I'm interested to learn more. Can you share a little bit about your research with me? And in general, people are willing to say yes, and it's a great way to kind of open the door and get the conversation started.
Yeah, similarly to what I was going to say as well for like the tips and tricks for networking is that just ask questions. So for example, as Caitlin was saying, if someone had done a presentation, you have a list of questions, say, hi, I have these questions for you. Would you be willing to answer them? And most of the time, a lot of people want to pass on their expertise. They want to be surrounded by good scientists. They want to aid in the development of good scientists around you. So they will answer your questions. And if not, they'll refer you to someone who can. And I think that's a big step, especially that's something you can do virtually and in person. So that's my biggest tip, was just ask questions.
Yeah, I think same thing. Just don't hesitate to ping somebody, send them a Teams chat or an email, kind of following up from a meeting, or if you again saw a paper or a presentation from someone, definitely reach out. Most people that I've found at NCAS are very open and willing to engage, especially if you're kind of on the newer side. I think we all have a kind of a mentorship bent to us to help bring folks up and work together. So I think most of the time, if you don't get a response, it's usually because people are really busy. So you can keep pinging here and there. But yeah, just be open to reaching out and getting engaged. Take advantage of any situations, meetings that get thrown on calendars, or possibilities, even though this isn't remote, but if travel's picking up. So if there's opportunities to join into some gatherings or conferences and those types of things. Those are really the really key opportunities, I think, to do any kind of networking.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I totally agree with like asking questions and trying to engage with others, like through, just attending random meetings and stuff. I have a feeling you guys are going to be probably getting some emails from new students. But yes. Okay. So next, I think just, do you guys have any other, well, actually, there's one more question that I want to ask before I ask the official tips and tricks question. What is something you wish someone told you when you started your career?
With risk of being a little bit repetitive of what we were just saying, I think I wish somebody had encouraged me to ask questions more. I think sometimes I felt in graduate school, especially, but in other settings, like you were supposed to know the answers or you weren't, I got nervous to ask questions or admit that I didn't know something. And looking back, I wish somebody had encouraged me to do that because, as we've said, people are so willing to help and people want you to succeed and want to help you and to mentor you. And someone else in the room is bound to have the same question that you have. And so not being afraid to just ask and learn something new is something I think I'm better at embodying now than I was when I was a student. And I wish somebody had kind of nurtured that in me earlier on.
For me, I would say, I ended up making this decision to apply to NASA in undergrad, but having someone tell me that I'm not stuck in the career path that I think I want for myself, or I'm not stuck with whatever I'm studying in university, saying that it's okay to try something that's completely bizarre to you, something you don't really know anything about. You can take that leap, and it's either gonna be good or bad. That's up to luck. I can't assure everyone that's gonna be a great experience, but it's okay and not to be too scared. Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe similar to what Caitlin was saying about asking questions. So it's also about just kind of voicing your thoughts and opinions in any sort of setting. So when I was junior, like an intern, I was like, oh, I probably shouldn't speak up now because I'm just an intern. And then it was contractor, and then it was like junior. Like there's always this feel that maybe I should just hold back this thought. But then finding out later, like, well, that thought that I had originally is actually a valuable piece that would have been, a valuable contribution to that conversation. And maybe it comes up later to only confirm that I should have, brought it up in the beginning. And so just kind of like having that that confidence to be able to speak up and knowing that it would be well received by the people that you're with as well. So kind of not having any fear of voicing your thoughts, ideas, and opinions, and yeah, just being comfortable kind of in that space and just being able to be part of a collaborative participation amongst all the people that you're dealing with. So yeah, something along those lines.
I definitely agree with everything that you guys are saying. And I also think that it's so understated that when you're in school and you're taking classes actively, you're typically getting some of the most current and updated information on how new processes are happening or new technologies or new workflows. And your input in these meetings can sometimes be so valuable. Like I remember when I was an intern in ed tech startup in Washington, D.C. I had my background knowledge from the grad program that I was currently in, and I would just pipe up in meetings and they would love the suggestions and they would give me a project and I would roll with it. And, they eventually became my my letter writers and letters of recommendation. So, and people that I still talk to today. So I think that just asserting yourself and being confident in your knowledge, or even asking questions or giving a suggestion or what about this, like you have such a different frame of thinking while you're in school that's maybe someone that's actively in their career or like set in their ways isn't considering. So definitely agree with everything that you guys are saying. Last question that I have for you guys is, I know that we did talk about like tips and tricks, like questions and and asking questions in meetings and all of that and just popping into people's projects. But do you guys have any other tips or tricks? If you don't have any, you can pass, and then we can get started with Q&A. For Q&A, I will say prepare your questions in the chat box. Just start raising your hand so that Mike can call on you to share your question. That I'll turn it over back to you guys.
I have so many tips and tricks, but I'll limit it to just from my successes and my failures, but I'll limit it to just two that I think are important. My first one is that one of the things I found to be really useful in my career is to email people after you've met them, like very soon after you've met them. So if you meet them at a conference or you're on a call together, I might be emailing Jeff and Maha after this, you know, to like make that connection and open the line of communication. And sort of in your email, you can say where you've met each other so that then, you know, 6 months down the line, if you think, oh, I need a connection in biology, I'm going to email Maha. And now you already have that direct line of communication open, and she's able to remember where you met and sort of put a name to the face a little bit. And I think it really fosters communication in the future. It's a good way to do it. The other thing I would say is don't be afraid to lean on your sort of close-knit network to build further connections. You know, it's often the networking connections I have are kind of a connection of a connection. My PhD advisor was somebody who was able to connect me to a much wider range of people. So if you're looking for something specific, but you don't have it in your connection already, reach out to somebody you do know who's kind of in that same field and say, hey, I'm looking for this, or do you know anybody you could connect me with? Because that connection can help open the door instead of just a cold email to somebody that they might not respond to.
I completely agree. I attended a conference last year, and I think I employed every one of those techniques, Caitlin. And on top of that, another thing you can do if you're talking to someone and you know that you definitely are going to reach out to them for some reason, don't be shy about saying it to their face, being like, hey, would it be okay if I send you an email about this sometime next week and we could follow up? So then they know that they're going to be expecting a response from you. Another thing on top of that would be, if this is more on the case of, you know, someone like very like specific that you want to network with, is read their papers, or read their older papers, read their recent papers, read the ones that stand out to you, because when that comes up in the conversation, you're learning. So even if things don't work out with your networker, you're going to leave that experience with learning something new. But I think that really helps with building a relationship with someone as well. Yeah, I think take opportunities that allow you to go places. So for example, if your team is you working in like a collaborative setting and there's another team that you maybe want to visit, or say, can I come see your laboratory? Little things like that, taking the initiative to leave your space to get into another, to talk to people is always good too.
Yeah, I think great advice so far. I'll kind of tie this back to some of our earlier conversation in terms of just, as maybe it goes without saying, but no matter what it is you're doing, you know, try your best to do it as best as you can, because you never know who's watching and who's going to be, you know, benefiting from what you're doing, and just making sure that you're always presenting like the best version of you kind of in your job. So whether it's, I don't know, reserving a conference room and following up on that, to writing a paper and presenting that out internationally, or, you know, anything in between. Just take each task, each job as important, and doing your best, having that attention to detail, and kind of like I said before, having those actions be part of what's advocating for you out there as well. And also, honestly, just being nice, you know, be nice out there. There's no reason to be mean or rude to anyone. We're all trying to do the same thing and work together. And regardless of whether they're senior to you or junior to you, we're all, you know, part of the same NASA family. So we should all treat each other accordingly. And as you know, as we're networking, nobody owes you anything. So go in with that mindset that you are hoping to benefit from this network, but also, you know, benefit that other person, but kind of go in with, you know, I'm seeking to gain knowledge and opportunity kind of through this relationship. So if anything, it's a bi-directional thing, if not kind of more benefit to you. So just be nice and genuine to anyone from the top all the way down, and treat each other like family. And I had like one go back, Sarah Beth, sorry, to the earlier
Go for it.
conversation on like kind of something that I wish people would have said earlier on, but I wanted to kind of flip it and also think of as we kind of move forward in our journey, if it's at NASA or even anywhere else, but as we get into more senior roles, kind of keeping an eye out for kind of the junior and kind of intern level people. And yeah, as we're in meetings, I want to make sure that everyone's voice is heard. So kind of keeping an eye out for those types of individuals and making sure that they have a chance to speak. So maybe even if they're comfortable, calling on them during the meeting to make sure that you get their thoughts and input in there and that their voice is heard. So, just kind of keeping in mind where you came from as you move your way up through the ranks.
That's some great insight as well that we all should definitely keep in mind as we go through our careers. We have a ton of questions, so I'm going to pass it over to Mike. How this will go is Mike will call on someone, they'll share their message in the chat, and then he will read it out to you guys to answer. And you guys can keep your same order or just answer as needed, or they might ask a specific person a question. So passing this over to Mike.
Exactly. Thank you, Sarah Beth, and thank you for everything that you've talked about, our panelists. That's been awesome. So again, we're going to go and we'll just have, excuse me?
We can see you. It's just your background. Oh, there you are. Hello.
Magic. All right, so what we will do is if we can just get, as we go through, we'll just have one person answer the question. And then we will, if somebody else has something they really want to put in there, great. But that way we can get through as many questions as possible during this last 25 minutes here. All right, so our first question comes from Garrick. Garrick, if you want to go ahead and put your question in. All right, Garrick says, hi, my name is Garrick Smith, and my dream is to work for NASA as a NASA engineer and NASA scientist. In the fall of 2023, I am transferring to Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan for computer science, math, and physics. How can these majors help me get a job as an aerospace engineer or astrophysicist at NASA? And can I have a LinkedIn link? Who would like to take this one?
I can jump in unless anyone else wants to, since I mostly come from those areas. First off, I think it's so awesome that you have a dream to work at NASA. It sounds like you're doing all the right things to set yourself up for success. I would say, computer science, math, and physics are all wonderful majors and careers that you're really setting yourself up to do very well in a variety of different projects at NASA. I think I would encourage you to look on nasa.gov and kind of read about some of the projects that we have and all the different things that are happening, and be really open-minded, because a background in engineering or computer science, physics, any of these will really well prepare you to work on pretty much everything we do here, which is really exciting. I don't have any LinkedIn information that I can share with you, but I would encourage you to just keep an eye out and keep doing research. Check out our interns page, both pathways and kind of our other internships. There's lots of great opportunities out there. And I think you're on the road to success.
Yeah, I'll chime in as well. Those major areas are right in line with what we traditionally is thought of as NASA needs. And I'll also say there's, like I said before, there's really a whole host of majors and research areas that are applicable to NASA. So I think what you listed out here is the core majors that you would look at, but there's really a lot more that are outside of those as well for others that maybe aren't as engineering focused. But there's opportunities for everyone and anyone, from admin to psychology to design, everything. So don't limit yourself.
All right, Keila, would you go ahead and type submit your question? I'm sorry, I can't talk this morning. All right. All right. So my name is Kiela. I'm studying biology, hopefully to work in forensic science. I have a silly question for the biologists at NASA. I sort of wonder what they're up to. A lot of research is Earth-based and dedicated to studying systems so that we can improve the lives of people. But what do astrobiologists do? Do they study samples from space, dig around little microbes under a microscope? So that's her question. So what happens in astrobiology?
I'm assuming I'm going to take that one. There is actually a lot of science that's done in astrobiology. There's a lot of cool things from plant biology to microbiology to animal biology. We've done sequencing on the ISS. We just actually sent out MHU8, which is the mouse habitat unit. So we have mice going up there, and one of my colleagues just did the baseline dissections for that. Astrobiology, it's a very wide range. Whatever biology niche that you love, you're going to find. I can talk a little bit about my internship. That was a planetary protection research position. So that is about protecting forward contamination and backward contamination of sensitive planetary targets. So are we making sure that all the spacecrafts that we're sending are clean going up, or we're not going to, for example, if we land on the moon, are we dropping anything we don't want on the moon? So that was a microbiology lab I had worked in, and currently we do study samples from space. My current job, we sequence animal and microbiology samples that are sent to space. So yeah, a lot of good science. You can read all up about it online as well, and I'll send my email later in the chat so people can ask me questions about it.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and have Milagro and Jonathan, if you would both please put your questions in. All right, so question is to Jeffrey and Caitlin. String theory is mathematical complications, complicated subject to. However, I've read string theory can be related through consciousness in addition to other concepts of multiple dimension, multiverse, dark matter, etc. Can that benefit in calculating the hypothetical theory?
That's a
Caitlin,
big
you wanna take-
question. I was going to say, Jeff, do you want to take this one?
Yeah.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was gonna go after you, but I think it is a huge big question, and I think it's maybe kind of early as far as like the applicability or application of it, at least to the work that I'm doing and a lot of us are doing right now. It's certainly an area of interest and opportunity in exploring, especially in how it gets applied to the way we interact with our physical world here, and kind of thinking forward to the explorations that are ahead of us as humanity. So these are really the types of questions I think that are kind of on the earlier side of things, but definitely worthy of more exploration and research, and a lot of different kind of out of the box thinking to get to a point where we can take the outcomes of that research and apply them to the development of specific technologies that are going to help us advance as we move out. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
that was great. Very well said. I absolutely agree. I'm not an expert. I'm not sure I have anything too much more to add, but I will say this was a great question. It shows that you're thinking about details and interesting research that's happening here. So that's great as well.
Awesome, thank you. So our next question comes from Jonathan. So what I'm going to do though with Jonathan, I'm not going to skip your question, but you have access to the NCAS staff throughout the rest of the week. So we're going to see if we can get Dr. Weiss to answer that question. But since we only have our three panelists here for this hour, can I go ahead and get Justice to go ahead and input your question? It's a great question, Jonathan. Like I said, I just want to take advantage of the fact that we have the three of them here right now. All right, so Justin says, he lives in Alaska, realized that coming across connections related to the fields of aerospace, astrophysics, NASA, etc., are pretty hard to come by for me at the moment due to my state's demography and geography. What tips would you give for networking for someone who is limited by geography and/or demographics?
I think the nice thing now is that so many people are remote, so I think a lot of the barriers are a little less daunting than they were before. So you being in this conversation is exactly the types of things that you should be doing, and you can be doing from Alaska or anywhere else. I'm trying to think also, I know there's like a number of, at least on the aeronautics side, number of activities going on in Alaska at a number of different times. There's also a lot of collaborations that we do, like with NOAA, for example. That's another agency that we work with that has a lot of interest in doing research and their work up in Alaska. Like I'm actually involved in a collaboration right now looking at the use of drones to monitor wildlife out in the Aleutian Islands. And so there's a lot of, I think, opportunities out there. So it's a matter of, I guess, finding those and then contacting the people that are associated with those. But I think, yeah, the remote work culture that we have right now is really a good, I think, actually a good benefit and bodes well for you, I think, in getting more access and opportunities.
Great, thank you. Can we go ahead and get Felicia and Ashley P to go ahead and put your questions in, please? All right, so from Felicia, I am an information systems major, and the fall I'll be attending ASU for biomed, and then hopefully Johns Hopkins for neuroscience. I was also previously a psych major at UMD. How do I open the door for a career that blends all of those fields and potentially land an opportunity at NASA? She really wants to form a path for herself that's a bit different than the standard route.
I can go ahead and take this one if that's all right. I think a good starting point is figuring out what do you want to study? What are you passionate about? Because as those fields are, there is overlap between them. There's plenty of overlap, but finding exactly what do you want to study? Do you want to study human factors, psychology of astronauts? Because that's, HRP is a big organization. That's something you can reach out to as well. So I think starting point, try different things, figure out what you want to study, and then try to find the emails of those people in the field. Yeah, does anyone want to add on?
Yeah, I think great majors kind of aligned a little bit with where I came from as well. So it's I did want to say before, and I think I kind of said it, that those types of majors are also very much in demand, similar to the other kind of more hardcore engineering majors as well. So there are a number of activities for that type of research. The division I'm in is specifically related to human systems integration, so it really takes it draws from those disciplines. I think Caitlin's division as well, the intelligent systems division, is looking including that type of perspective into the work that they're doing. And that goes for aeronautics and space. There's space, human factors and understanding how the astronauts interact with the systems that they're involved in and the habitats and everything. So that's that particular area, neuroscience, cognitive science, human factors, is really embedded pretty much everywhere. So there's a lot of opportunities, I think, in that field. So I wish you luck and hope to see you around.
All right, if Nico, if you go to put your question in, we do have a question from Ashley. It says, did any of you ever feel like your goals were too far away to reach? I get anxiety as a community college student, knowing I still have to go get my bachelor's and then go to grad school. I'm wondering if that was your experience or if it seemed to go by quickly. I feel like my life will be halfway over by the time I am actually doing something.
I'll jump in on that one as somebody who spent many, many years in school. I absolutely have felt all of those things many times. So I hope that brings you a little bit of comfort to know that you are not alone in those feelings. It's really tough to have, to have to go through many years of school and to have big dreams and really want to achieve them. And imposter syndrome is something that many of us struggle with, thinking that we might not be good enough for the roles that we're striving for. I think for me, it sort of relates back to what I wish I could have told my younger self. I wish I could go back and, tell myself, like, you can do it. You absolutely can do it. It takes hard work and dedication, but you are definitely capable enough. If you're here in this room today, you are definitely capable enough. I also, during my time in graduate school, worked with many students that in sort of a TA and instructor roles. And I'll say that the students who had gone to community college first and then come to sort of a standard 4-year university were the best students that I saw. They were the most prepared. They had taken all the right coursework to kind of build the right foundation. They were hard workers. So I think you're really setting yourself up for success in that, even if it feels like you have many years ahead of you. And the last thing I would say is that I too was worried that my life would be halfway over by the time that I got to my role, but it's not. I'm here now. And, I think when you find something you're really passionate about and you're really excited about when you go to grad school, it does make the time pass faster. And it's, in a hard experience, but an enjoyable one. So I hope that brings you a little bit of comfort.
All right, thank you. Daniela, if you'll go ahead and put your question in. We have a question from Nico. It says, what was the moment that you can recall where you decided NASA is the place I want to work at?
Can go for it. I actually didn't know until I was in my internship, because I didn't know anything about NASA before my internship. It was kind of, as I said earlier, it was a shot in the dark. It was the people. So I work in a collaborative laboratory building. So, I love the people. I didn't want to go. I thought that I was learning so much more than I had learned in university, to be very honest. I think the pace of the learning and the quality of the learning, because everyone around me wanted me to be a good scientist and I was working around good scientists. So I thought if I had left, I would be missing out on a whole world of opportunity. Yeah, I think that's the moment that I realized that I want to stay.
And I mentioned it before, like I didn't go in with plans to work at NASA, never even thought it was a possibility, to be honest. But I even got through undergrad and wasn't really thinking of NASA too much. But then as I started exploring graduate schools and in particular human factors, when I started looking at some of those programs, that's when I noticed that there was this link between. I went to San Jose State for grad school, and there was a relationship with NASA Ames through that program that I was looking at, and that's where it sort of like inspired me. Like, oh wow, there's a chance to not that I didn't want to work for NASA before, I just didn't think it was a possibility, and kind of finding that connection sort of like turned a light on that. Wow, it is possible, and there's this program here that gives me potential window into NASA. And so that I picked that program and hit that internship button pretty hard to try and get in. Once I realized it was an opportunity and a possibility, and rest is history.
Awesome, thank you. All right, Isaac, if you'd go ahead and put your question in. We have a question from Daniela, and this is for Jeffrey. Says, thank you for your service. I'm currently in the Air Force Reserves and would love to work at NASA. My question is, does working in NASA add to time in service? And is working in NASA separate from DoD time in service?
Yeah, great question. And that was, I guess, one of the goals that came out when I first started working at NASA was to become a civil servant, so kind of on the federal side. So there's different positions within NASA. There's there's contractors, and then there's the civil servant structure in there. And On the contractor side, it doesn't add to your federal service, your DoD service, but if you transition over to become a civil servant on the federal side, you can actually buy back your military time, which adds on to your total federal service time. So for example, I've been a civil servant for I think 7 years, and then I was in the Navy for eight and a half years. So when I switched over, I could buy back those 8 years, and so now I have like over 15 years of federal service, which adds on to your, retirement and all those things. So it's definitely I encourage, especially anyone with military service, to do everything you can to get on the civil service side and take advantage of that time that you put in.
Awesome. Great question. Great question. Daniel, if you'll go ahead and put your question in, we have a question from Isaac. It says, when it comes to job opportunities and networking, what do you think the best course of action would be for an undergrad cybersecurity student wanting remote work with NASA and or their contractors?
I can jump in on that. I don't have expertise in cybersecurity, so I don't know if I can speak to that specifically, but I would say in general, one of the best ways to sort of get your foot in the door and get some experience is to do an internship. And that can be both during, any sort of your college experience, either in community college or afterwards, or as a graduate student. There are a lot of awesome opportunities, and it's a really good way to have the NASA experience and to meet new people and make those connections to then further hopefully get a full-time position down the road. That would be on I guess that would be on the civil servant or the contractor side, depending on which internship you had. But that would sort of be my best suggestion, even though it's not cybersecurity specific. I don't know if anyone else has a better thought.
No, I think, yeah, good advice. Cybersecurity is obviously a need for our general networks, and also as we're building out some of these new systems and concepts for for these new ideas that are coming out, like drones and everything. Cybersecurity is the key aspect to kind of developing a safe network for all of us to be working off of. So definitely, I think there has to be opportunities out there. Just keep an eye out for internships or pathways, or even in job postings that are out there if you qualify for them. But cybersecurity is obviously an important piece for a lot of our work. So there's opportunities out there.
Awesome. Thank you. We have 3 more questions in the queue. These will be the last 3 questions that we get to. So can I have Stephen go ahead and throw yours in there while we're waiting? I have a question from Daniel, and I'm going to paraphrase this so we can save some time. Went to a conference, met a company. They offered him a job, even though he was not a 4-year graduate. So he was surprised. However, though, the job was a long ways away and would have affected the academics. So he's wondering, how do you reject offers respectively, if possible, and still maintain connections?
I can take this one. I would say prioritize your academics at this point. You want to focus on that and finish it, and don't try to get too distracted. Explain the situation to them. Say that you have to finish your 1 year of course. Explain that you're still interested in the job, that you're eager to start. And in addition, you should keep in touch with them. So if you do something new your 4th year, maybe email them, be like, I just learned this new skill. I was wondering if there's an application for that in the position, if it's still open when you get to apply. Showing that you're eager and showing that you're excited to do the work. That's a really big thing for a lot of companies. So stay in touch, explain the situation, but also explain that you're still willing and eager to do it when you finish your studies. Is my what I would do.
All right, Juliet, if you'll throw your question, that will be our last one. So while we're waiting, we have one from Stephen, and this is going to Caitlin's. As a mathematician, what does a normal day of work look like for you? What was the most interesting job you've worked on, and the one that you did not quite enjoy the most?
I think that's an awesome question because I think a job as a mathematician is somewhat, it's not all of us know what that looks like. I certainly didn't before I got here. NASA, I'm a researcher, and so I am doing, sometimes I do real paper and pencil math, but more often than not, I'm developing algorithms using computer science. So I'm coding different mathematical algorithms or applying them to solve interesting research problems, and sort of tweaking them or developing them further to be able to answer interesting questions. So the one of the things I love the most, which kind of speaks to the interesting jobs, I think, is that these algorithms that we develop and that I've learned are applicable to so many different things. So my PhD work was in mathematical biology, and I studied muscle contraction with mathematics. And we used different equations to kind of scale all the way from the protein level, the very smallest molecular scale, all the way up to what our whole muscles do. And I thought that was such a neat way to use math to understand muscle function and disease, a connection you might not think about. And so there's the biology side. Now I work on the aerospace side, and I develop algorithms that make predictions. And we often look at lithium-ion batteries. So it's a completely different field. You know, we're modeling something completely separate, but it's all the same math that I used in my PhD, which is one of the most interesting things I think about being a mathematician, is that you have kind of this core toolbox that's applicable to so many different things. Off the top of my head, I can't even come up with a job that I've done that I don't like. So I'm going to leave it at that on a positive note.
Thank you. And lastly, we have Juliet. So it says, it was interesting to hear that many of you got started at NASA through a Pathways internship. Is the application for a Pathways internship open all year round? If not, when would be a good time to apply? Also, how many Pathway interns does NASA accept per year?
For either of you, Pathways, do you want me to take this one? Okay. OSEM is also great, so we should make sure to talk about that as well, because that's a huge opportunity. In terms of Pathways, I don't know all the answers to your question off the top of my head, but I'd be happy to connect with you via email and find out answers for you. I don't think it's open all year round. I believe there are maybe 3 or 4 different sort of quarterly calls for Pathways students. And I don't know exactly when those are, but you can find out all that information on, I think it's interns.nasa.gov or nasa.interns.gov, and it should all be there. I also don't know the exact question to how many interns are accepted, but I think the answer is quite large. I think there are many Pathways internships that are available, and if you are interested in being a Pathways, I highly encourage it. They call it a Pathways internship because it can be a pathway to a full-time position, and it's a really incredible way to get some experience and potentially set yourself up for success at NASA. And if anybody has more questions about that, I would be very happy to pass on my experiences. Just shoot me an email. I'll put my email in the chat. Happy to talk about it.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. We do have an expert here on the line, Dr. Sarah Beth Sullivan. She is our interns manager here on the West Coast. So she's actually going to be talking to you tomorrow about internships. You're going to hear from some current and past NCAS interns. So you'll hear more about that tomorrow as well. So with that, that's all of our questions. So I just want to say a heartfelt thank you to our 3 panelists. That was a fantastic time that we had today. Hearing your questions or hearing your answers to the students' questions, that was great. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Sarah Beth to close us out.
Oh no, Mike, you were great. You were giving a great closing out talk. I just wanted to pop on and tell everyone thank you so much for coming. +1 to Mike for doing the Q&A and for starting out that close. And I really appreciate all of you participating. If you'd like to share your information with the students, you can email me or message me on Teams, and I will pass it over to them. So thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Okay.
Thanks so
everyone.
much. Good luck,
Take care.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a great day, everybody.